Seraphina, why are you here? His voice cracked the second he saw her standing under the chandelier. Just moments ago, he walked into the five-star hotel with his mistress on his arm, bragging about the suite he had booked. Now, the wife he treated like an accessory was staring at him with a calm he didn't recognize, while the staff bowed and greeted her as Ms. Vance, the owner. Tonight's story is about how a woman stops asking for respect and starts owning the room where she was betrayed. If you enjoy twists like this, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and stay for the next chapter. Seraphina Vance adjusted the napkin on her lap, pretending she didn't notice the way Eleanor Beaumont watched her every move. Across the long, polished table, the older woman sat with perfect posture, the kind of posture that came from years of believing she owned every room she entered. Eleanor was Lachlan's mother, and she carried that title like a crown. Even her silence felt like judgment. Seraphina sensed the heaviness in the air before the first course arrived. It was always like this on Sunday nights. Tradition, Eleanor called it. Ritual, Seraphina thought. A ritual she had learned to endure with a polite smile. Eleanor tapped her spoon against her glass. I heard the charity project you're working on had its soft opening last week, she said, her tone sweet but sharp enough to cut skin. Such a modest undertaking. Very thoughtful of you to aim for something simple. Seraphina felt the words sink in like cold needles. She kept her voice warm. It was never meant to be large. Its purpose is to help young architects from underrepresented communities find mentorship. That's all. Eleanor nodded slowly, as if humoring a child. Of course, helping others is admirable, though at some point I imagine you'll want to focus on responsibilities that matter to this family. Lachlan sat beside Seraphina, silent as always, staring at his plate. He was her husband, a man she once believed would protect her from comments like these. Now he rarely met her eyes at these dinners. Seraphina asked gently, What responsibilities do you mean, Eleanor? The older woman smiled. Oh, darling, you know exactly what I mean. Every Beaumont woman has always understood the importance of continuing the family line. It is a legacy that should not be ignored. There was no mistaking the barb. Seraphina felt the familiar sting, but she swallowed it. Her fingers brushed the smooth fabric of her dress beneath the table, grounding herself. She wanted to glance at Lachlan, to see if he would speak for her just once. He did not. Instead, he cleared his throat. Mother, maybe we can talk about something else. Eleanor folded her napkin with slow precision. Why, I'm simply stating what any sensible woman would consider. Seraphina gave her a calm smile. Legacy can take many forms. Mine just looks different from yours. A brief, tense silence followed. Eleanor blinked, clearly not expecting a response that firm. Across the table, Seraphina saw the faintest twitch in Lachlan's jaw, but he still refused to look at her. He chose discomfort over support. The meal continued, but every exchange felt heavy. Eleanor compared Seraphina to the daughters of old family friends, women she deemed more appropriate for a Beaumont. She asked about Seraphina's career, with the same tone she would use to discuss a hobby. Each question felt like a test Seraphina was expected to fail, but she did not falter. She answered softly, thoughtfully, refusing to give Eleanor the satisfaction of seeing her break. When dessert was served, her purse vibrated under the table. She reached for her phone only long enough to glance at the screen. A message appeared from her financial advisor, Grant. Everything is finalized. Congratulations to the new owner of the Sterling Grand. Her heart gave the quietest jolt. She allowed herself a tiny breath, steady and secret. The Sterling Grand, her hotel, her future, her escape. She tucked the phone away before anyone noticed, though she suspected Eleanor wouldn't have cared enough to look. Lachlan remained caught in his own thoughts, barely speaking. After dinner, when the table was cleared and the family moved toward the sitting room for coffee, Seraphina lingered near the doorway. She watched her husband speak to his mother, nodding as Eleanor whispered something into his ear. Whatever it was, it made him tense. He saw Seraphina watching and offered her a stiff smile, a smile that used to feel warm, a smile she had once trusted. Seraphina turned away before her chest could tighten. She reminded herself that tonight was not about hurt. Tonight was the end of an era, the last time she would sit through a dinner where her worth was measured by someone else's standards. When Eleanor called her name again, Seraphina simply walked forward, her expression serene. She no longer felt small. She no longer felt powerless. Something in her had shifted. And Eleanor, despite all her scrutiny, had no idea she was looking at a woman who held an empire in her hands. Tonight, Seraphina played her role with grace. Soon, she would write a story entirely her own. The bedroom was quiet in that heavy way that made every sound feel loud. Seraphina sat near the headboard, back straight, hands resting on the duvet. Her dress was still perfect, makeup intact, but inside she felt scraped raw. Lachlan stood at the wardrobe slipping off his cufflinks. He acted like it was any other Sunday night. Shirt, watch, tie, routine, avoidance. "Are you really going to pretend nothing happened tonight?" she asked. He sighed without turning. "Siri, please, I am exhausted. Mother pushed too far, I know, but you also know how she is. Let us not turn it into a spectacle after the fact." "Spectacle," she repeated. "That is what you are afraid of." He glanced over his shoulder. "What is that supposed to mean?" "She humiliated me at your table," Seraphina said, keeping her voice low. "My work, my body, my place in this house. You watched it happen and decided the worst thing that could occur was a scene." He closed the wardrobe and finally faced her. Without the jacket, he looked less untouchable, but it did not help. "I was trying to keep things from getting ugly." "They were already ugly," she said. "You just made sure they stayed quiet." He frowned. "If I had argued with her in front of everyone, it would have exploded. She would have gone after you harder. You know that." "Maybe," Seraphina replied. "But at least I would not have sat there wondering if my husband agreed with her." He moved closer, hands on his hips. "You are making me the enemy here, and that is not fair. I have spent years balancing you and my family. There is a lot on my shoulders. The Beaumont name is not a toy." "There it is again," she said softly. "The name. And what if I am proud of it?" he shot back. "I have responsibilities. Deals, board members, investors. The Sterling Review is coming up, and I am under a microscope. I cannot start fights at dinner every time Mother says something insensitive." Her gaze did not waver. "You call it insensitive. I call it cruel." He rubbed his temples. "You are taking this too personally." "I am the one she was talking about," Seraphina said. "It was personal before I opened my mouth." He let out a humorless breath. "You know she wants grandchildren. You know she thinks your charity is small compared to what this family does. She speaks before she thinks. That is all." Seraphina looked at him for a long moment. "Do you remember what you told me when we married?" He blinked. "We are really going back to that now?" "You said we would build our own life," she continued. "That no matter what your family thought, we would be a team. I believed you. That is why I turned down the position in Chicago. That is why I packed my portfolio into one suitcase and came here." "You still design," Lachlan argued. "You have your foundation, your sketches. No one has stopped you." "Your mother calls it a little charity," she said. "You call it my project, never my work, never my career." He sank into the armchair by the window, shoulders tight. "That is not what I meant. You know I love you. Why else would I have fought to marry you in the first place?" Once those words would have softened her. Tonight they just floated in the air and fell flat. "Love is not just what you felt years ago," Seraphina answered. "It is what you do now, when it costs you something." He looked away, jaw clenched. Silence spread between them, thick and familiar. At last, she swung her legs off the bed and walked to the small desk near the window. Her laptop waited there, lid half open. She touched the trackpad, and the screen lit up, white against the dim room. Emails, contracts, wire confirmations. Her name appears again and again in formal fonts. She opened the latest message from her advisor. She already knew every line, but she read it once more. Transfer complete. New registered owner, Seraphina Vance. Her real name. The one she had been born with. The one that was on the trust her grandmother had left her. The one that did not belong to the Beaumonts. Behind her, Lachlan asked, "What are you working on all the time?" "At work," she said. "Your charity," he pressed. "Those small things you do?" She turned her head, studying him. "They are not small to me." He watched her carefully now, something uneasy flickering in his eyes. "Are you saying I do not value you?" "I am saying I have spent years acting as if what I want is less important than what your mother wants," she replied, "than what your name demands. Tonight I realized how much that has cost me." His voice lowered. "So what do you want, Siri?" She closed the laptop with a soft sound. It felt final, even if nothing had been said aloud. She walked back to the bed and stood at her side, facing him. "I want to stop waiting for you to become the man you promised you would be," she said. "You are who you are, Lachlan. I finally accept that." He stared at her as if she had struck him. You think I do not want to be better? I think this is your version of better, she answered. Keeping everyone calm, keeping the name clean, keeping me quiet. He did not answer. Later, when the lights were off and he lay beside her, his arm slid around her waist from habit. Once that weight had comforted her. Tonight it felt like a reminder of how easily he held on without really seeing her. Seraphina stared into the darkness, listening to his breathing slow. She thought of the message on her screen, of the hotel that now belonged to her, of the life that did not depend on his courage. For the first time since she took his last name, she let herself imagine living under her own again. Vance. She repeated it in her mind until sleep finally came. Not as a return to him, but as the first step away. The morning sun filtered weakly through the curtains when Lachlan appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, fastening the last button of his shirt. Seraphina was already seated at the counter, stirring her tea even though it had gone cold. She watched him quietly, waiting for the moment he would speak. He cleared his throat. I need to tell you something before the day gets busy. She lifted her eyes, calm and unreadable. Go ahead. I will be out of town this weekend, he said. There is a last-minute meeting with a potential partner. It is important. I will probably leave Friday afternoon. Seraphina nodded slowly. What kind of meeting? He hesitated just for a second. A development firm. They want to discuss expansion opportunities before the quarter ends. She repeated his words in her mind. Development firm, expansion, quarter ends. None of it sounded wrong, but something about the way his gaze slid away made the story tilt. Where will the meeting be held? She asked. Upstate, he answered too quickly. At a resort. They want privacy. Huh, who is attending from your team? He exhaled as if she were being unreasonable. Siri, it is not a full board meeting. It is just me and a couple of executives. They will send the details later. I am still waiting for the final agenda. Seraphina set her cup down. I see. Lachlan forced a smile. Try not to worry. I know the timing is inconvenient, but these deals matter. To him, maybe. Less and less to her. She gave him a polite nod, letting the conversation die. He leaned down to kiss her cheek, but she turned her head slightly, pretending to reach for a napkin. His lips brushed her temple instead. He didn't notice. After he left, the silence in the house felt almost relieving. For a few minutes, she stood still, absorbing it. Then she walked upstairs to his office. She rarely entered without asking, but today the door felt like a line she had already crossed in her heart. She opened the drawer where he kept the wallet tied to their shared financial accounts. One card was hers, one was meant for emergency mutual expenses. He never imagined she looked at the statements because she never questioned him. That was his mistake. Seraphina powered on the home computer, logged in, and opened the banking portal. The list of charges loaded slowly, each line another piece of a story he thought she would never read. There it was, a jewelry purchase, expensive enough to make her eyebrows rise. A boutique that specialized in rare pieces, not anything she cared for anymore. She clicked the receipt. 2 items, one clearly meant for a younger style. Below that, a reservation, a suite, the Sterling Grand, for 2. Her breath did not quicken. Her pulse did not spike. She felt only clarity, sharp and cold. Her hotel, his lie. The symmetry of it almost made her laugh. She leaned back, letting the truth settle. The woman he was taking there was obvious. Brielle, the young associate from the gallery he funded. Seraphina had seen the girl once at a charity event, her bright smile too eager around Lachlan, her admiration too transparent. Lachlan had brushed it off as harmless. Seraphina opened her inbox, scanning past architectural sketches she had been reviewing. She found a message from her operations manager at the Sterling Grand, Louis Claremont, a poised man in his 40s, respectful and quietly competent. He reported directly to her since the acquisition, though Lachlan had no idea the email address belonged to his wife. She clicked reply and typed, "There will be a guest arriving tomorrow evening. Name, Lachlan Beaumont. Please ensure he receives the highest level of attention. Inform me the moment he checks in." She added a cordial signature and pressed send. As she closed the laptop, she realized she felt no urge to cry, no ache of betrayal. She had been drifting away from him long before this weekend. He was simply confirming a distance she had already begun to accept. Her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant, Naomi, a young woman she trusted and mentored in her foundation. Had the meeting with the scholarship committee. They loved your proposal. Want to finalize the shortlist this week. Seraphina smiled. Naomi was ambitious, hardworking, and loyal, one of the few people who knew how much Seraphina's old dreams still meant to her. She replied, "Great work. I will come by the office tomorrow." When she looked up from the screen, the house felt even quieter. She walked toward the window, folding her arms as she stared outside. She no longer doubted herself. She no longer asked what she lacked. The truth was not about her worth. It was about his weakness. Her weekend was suddenly free. She whispered to herself, "Good. Let him walk into the walls he built." She turned away from the window and headed upstairs to pack a few things. Her new life was already moving, step by deliberate step. He just didn't know he was walking straight into it. Tomorrow, the Sterling Grand would welcome its owner and her husband. The entrance of the Sterling Grand gleamed with its usual elegance. But today, Seraphina stepped through the revolving doors with a different weight in her stride. She belonged here in a way no one else did. The marble floor, the polished brass railings, the soft hum of conversation in the lobby. All of it answered to her now. Louis Claremont, the general manager, noticed her immediately. He approached with the respectful calm she appreciated in him. Louis was in his early 40s, neatly dressed and composed, a man who valued order and discretion. He was one of the first people she trusted in her new venture. "Good afternoon, Ms. Vance," he said softly. "Everything is prepared as you requested. Staff have been briefed." "Thank you, Louis," she replied. "I'll need updates the moment he arrives." "Of course," he said. "Is there anything else you would like to review before tonight?" Seraphina considered it. Her gaze drifted across the vast lobby. She saw guests chatting near the lounge, employees moving with practiced efficiency, and the concierge offering directions with a courteous smile. She felt a quiet swell of pride. This place was no longer a symbol of what Lachlan valued. It was something she had built for herself. "I want to check the renovations on the mezzanine," she said, "and I need a moment in my office after that." Louis nodded and gestured for her to follow. As they walked, one of the receptionists greeted her with a bright smile. "Welcome back, Miss Vance." Seraphina returned the smile. "Thank you, Anna." Louis leaned in slightly. "Staff morale has been high since the transition. They appreciate your leadership." "I appreciate them," Seraphina replied, and she meant it. Here she did not have to defend her intentions or justify her ambitions. Here she was seen. On the mezzanine, workers were adjusting lighting fixtures and reviewing design plans. The hotel was preparing for a new architectural wing she had proposed, a project that made her pulse with a familiar excitement she had almost forgotten she could feel. One of the junior designers hurried over. "Ms. Vance, would you like to look at the new renderings?" "Not today," she said gently. "We'll schedule a full review next week. For now, just keep things moving." The young woman nodded quickly, grateful just to be acknowledged. Seraphina made her way back to her office, a quiet room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It had once belonged to one of the previous owners. Now it was hers. Her reflection in the glass looked calm, collected, and sharper than she had seen herself in years. She sat at her desk and reviewed the evening schedule. Though she already knew every detail, she checked the time again. Lachlan's check-in was expected in a few hours. She wondered if he would hesitate when he reached the front desk. Would he sense something was off? Would he look around, searching for her without knowing why? A knock sounded on her door. "Come in," she said. Naomi stepped inside, clutching a folder. She was in her late 20s, bright and earnest, and had always admired Seraphina's career before marriage had pulled her away from architecture. Now she worked at the foundation, but she helped with hotel matters when needed. "I brought the documents for the scholarship division," Naomi said. "Thought you might want to look at them while you're here." Seraphina took the folder. "Thank you. How did your meeting go yesterday?" "They loved your approach," Naomi replied. "They said your vision makes students feel seen." Seraphina's smile was soft. "That is the goal." Naomi shifted awkwardly. "You seem different today, confident, strong." "I am," Seraphina said simply. She did not explain why. She did not need to. Naomi respected her enough not to ask. When Naomi left, Seraphina stood and walked to the wardrobe tucked into the corner of the office. She opened it and touched the fabric of the emerald evening gown she had chosen. The color was rich, deep, commanding. She slipped into it slowly, feeling the weight settle perfectly on her shoulders. She pinned her hair with steady fingers and applied makeup that emphasized her eyes, not to alter herself but to sharpen her presence. Tonight was not about seduction or revenge. It was about reclaiming the narrative. She checked the time again. Her heart did not race. Her hands did not shake. Louis's voice crackled softly through the desk phone. Miss Vance, everything is set. Staff are in position. Thank you, she said. I'll be down shortly. She looked in the mirror one final time. The woman staring back was not the same woman who had sat silently at a dinner table while her mother-in-law belittled her. She was not the woman who waited for her husband's approval. She was the owner of the Sterling Grand. And tonight, the walls he had lied within would tell the truth for her. Seraphina Vance lifted her chin, stepped out of her office, and walked toward the staircase that would lead her into the heart of the hotel. She felt ready, more ready than she had ever been. The lobby of the Sterling Grand glowed under the chandelier light, warm and golden, the kind of radiance that made every guest slow their steps. Staff moved with trained grace, though a quiet anticipation pulsed beneath the surface. They had been told to expect a particular guest, and they knew their owner would soon make her entrance. Lachlan Beaumont walked through the glass doors with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. His hand rested lightly on the back of Brielle, who stayed close to him, wide-eyed as she took in the luxury around her. Brielle was in her mid-20s, soft-spoken and easily impressed, an assistant curator at the gallery Lachlan funded. She had always looked at him as though he hung the moon. She leaned into him and whispered, "This place is stunning. I have never seen anything like it." Lachlan smiled, pleased by her awe. "Only the best. You deserve to experience something special." He spoke as if the hotel belonged to him, as if he had curated the marble floors and crystal fixtures himself. His sense of entitlement fit him like a tailored suit. At the reception desk, Louis Claremont stepped forward, expression perfectly neutral. "Good evening. Welcome to the Sterling Grand. May I have your name, sir?" Lachlan straightened slightly, lowering his voice into its practiced, authoritative tone. "Lachlan Beaumont. I have a reservation." "Of course," Louis said. "We are prepared for your arrival." Something in his voice made a few employees glance up discreetly. They knew what was coming. Brielle looked around again, tugging gently at Lachlan's sleeve. "It feels like something out of a movie. Are you sure it is fine for us to stay here?" He chuckled. "Trust me, tonight will be memorable." Louis nodded as the concierge discreetly signaled upward. It was time. From the mezzanine staircase, soft footsteps echoed. Seraphina began her descent. The emerald gown hugged her figure, each step measured and composed. Light caught the fabric and sent a muted shimmer across the lobby. Her hair framed her face elegantly, her posture aligned with quiet certainty. She felt no tremor, no hesitation, only clarity. She greeted a passing bellman with a polite smile before continuing down. She did not look at Lachlan yet. She didn't need to. The room had already shifted. A whisper drifted across the lobby. "That is her." Another voice murmured, "She is stunning." Seraphina reached the final steps just as Louis stepped aside. Brielle was still admiring the decor when she noticed the sudden hush. She turned and froze. Her mouth parted slightly. Her hand slipped from Lachlan's arm. Lachlan felt the change before he understood it. He looked over his shoulder. His world stopped. "Siri?" The name escaped him before he could swallow it. Seraphina met his eyes for the first time that night. Her expression was calm, almost serene, as if she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in silence. But her gaze held something steel-sharp beneath the surface. She walked toward the reception desk, not toward him. She nodded at Louis. "Thank you. Everything seems in order." "Yes, Ms. Vance," Louis replied with a respectful bow of his head. "Ms. Vance." The word struck Lachlan like a blow. He blinked. What did he call you?" Seraphina finally turned to him fully. The chandelier above cast a glow over her features, softening nothing. "Welcome to my hotel, Lachlan." He stared at her as if she had spoken in another language. Confusion twisted into disbelief, then into dawning horror. "Your hotel?" "Yes," she said. "The Sterling Grand belongs to me." Brielle shifted uncomfortably, gripping the strap of her purse. "Lachlan, what is happening?" He ignored her. "Siri, this isn't funny. What do you mean by your hotel?" Louis stepped in quietly. "The Sterling Grand was acquired 6 weeks ago. Ms. Vance is the registered owner." A small crowd had begun to gather, not approaching, but watching with the hushed intensity of people witnessing something monumental. "Seraphina," Lachlan said again, voice low and shaky. "Why are you here? Why are you dressed like—" His eyes swept her gown, too elegant to ignore. "What is this?" "This," she replied, "is me living the life I built, a life you never bothered to see." Brielle whispered, You own this place." But Lachlan said, Seraphina looked at her, not cruelly, but with the calm of someone who already understood the truth. "He says many things. Lachlan reached for her arm. Siri, please, not here. She stepped back, and the gesture was small but absolute. She did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. Here is exactly where it needs to be. Employees watched, frozen in place. Guests pretended to check their phones but did not look away. The tension in the room felt like a held breath. Seraphina faced her husband, each word crisp. I know why you are here. I know who you are here with. And I know what you think you can get away with. Lachlan's face lost all color. Brielle whispered weakly, Lachlan. Seraphina did not spare him. Enjoy your stay. She turned to Louis. Please escort our guests to their suite. The word guests landed like thunder. She walked away slowly, her steps steady, her gown brushing the floor like a closing curtain. And Lachlan Beaumont understood at last that the woman he had underestimated was no longer playing the role he wrote for her. She was writing her own. Seraphina's office was quiet when she entered, the door clicking softly behind her. The city lights shimmered through the tall windows, but she barely glanced at them. Her pulse was steady, her mind sharp. She took her seat behind the desk and folded her hands, waiting. A knock came sooner than expected. Come in, she said. Louis opened the door just enough to lean in. Ms. Vance, he insists on speaking with you. Send him in, she replied. Louis stepped aside. Lachlan entered quickly, breath uneven, anger and panic mingling across his face. The door shut behind him, leaving the two of them alone. Siri, what was that downstairs? He demanded. You embarrassed me in front of an entire lobby. She raised one eyebrow. Is that what concerns you most? I want to understand what is going on, he said. Why would you do something like that? Why pretend you own this place? There is no pretending, she answered. I do own it. He stared at her, hands tightening at his sides. Since when? How? Where did you get the money? Seraphina opened a drawer, retrieved a thin folder, and placed it on the desk. Sit. He didn't move. Lachlan, she said, quieter but with far more force. Sit. He obeyed. She opened the folder. The first page showed the acquisition contract with her signature. She turned it so he could see. This hotel was purchased with funds from the trust my grandmother left me, she said. You never asked about it. You never cared where I came from or what I was capable of. That worked in my favor. His eyes darted over the pages. You hid this from me? I did not hide anything. You never looked. He lifted his head, hurt flashing beneath the confusion. You could have told me. You would have asked why I needed something of my own, she replied. And I was not ready to explain that your support was selective. Conditional. He looked away. Seraphina pulled out the next set of documents. Credit card statements, hotel bookings, jewelry receipts. Lachlan stiffened. You went through my accounts? I went through our accounts, she corrected. You made them share. You simply assumed I would never bother to check. Siri, it was not what you thought, he said quickly. The trip was stressful. Do not lie again, she cut in. Her voice did not rise, but it struck him harder than any shout. You booked a suite with Brielle. You bought her jewelry. You expected to enjoy a weekend in a hotel you thought belonged to strangers. He tensed. She means nothing. It was a mistake. Seraphina closed the folder. Mistakes do not require planning. Reservations do. Purchases do. He stood abruptly. I can fix this. We can go home. We do not have to let this destroy everything. Everything was already destroyed, she said. You just did not notice the cracks. He paced the room, running a hand through his hair. You are overreacting. We can work through this. I love you. That has not changed. She watched him struggle, watched him reach for words he had used too easily in the past. Love is not enough, she said. Not when it keeps demanding that I shrink myself. His voice broke a little. So what is this? What do you want from me? She opened the last folder. A legal document sat inside. Their prenuptial agreement. Eleanor Beaumont had insisted on it years ago, claiming it was simply tradition. Back then, Seraphina had agreed out of goodwill. Now it worked entirely in her favor. I spoke with my attorney this afternoon, she said. Given the circumstances, the agreement is clear. Your assets remain yours. Mine remain mine. I am not asking for anything from you or the Beaumonts. He stiffened. Why speak to a lawyer? Because divorce papers will be delivered to your office on Monday. Lachlan sank into the chair as if the strength had drained from him. You cannot be serious. I have never been more serious, she replied. He swallowed hard. Seraphina, please, this is our marriage. No, she said gently. This was our marriage. What I am offering now is the freedom you refuse to give me. I am giving it to myself. He shook his head in disbelief. You are throwing away everything we built. You built a life on your family's name, she said softly. I am building one on my own. There was no anger in her tone, only truth. He rose slowly as though the room itself felt heavier. So this is it? This is clarity, she corrected. The silence between them felt final. She nodded toward the door. You should go back downstairs. Louis will show you to the suite. I cannot stay here, he whispered. You already planned to. He flinched. When he finally walked out, he did not look back. Seraphina exhaled, her chest rising in a slow, steady breath. She closed the folders, placed them neatly in the drawer, and turned off the lamp. She felt lighter. She felt unbound. Tomorrow would begin her new life, and he had no place in it. 6 months later, the boardroom on the top floor of the Sterling Grand buzzed with focused voices. Charts flickered on the large screen, numbers shifting as projections changed. Seraphina Vance sat at the head of the long glass table, posture straight, expression confident. She no longer hesitated when the room looked to her. She led because she had learned she could. Her executives discussed international expansion plans. Among them was Daniel Rowe, a soft-spoken strategist in his 40s with an analytical mind and a calm temperament. He had joined her team 2 months earlier, impressed by her vision and equally committed to her mission. Daniel respected her leadership deeply. Sometimes watching her with admiration, he tried gently to hide. To break into the European market, we need a flagship presence, Daniel said, gesturing to the map on the screen. Paris or Lisbon would give us strong leverage, but both require a bold investment. Seraphina nodded. Then we invest. The Sterling Grand is more than a hotel. It is a brand built on trust and elegance. If we move forward, we do it decisively. Her team exchanged looks of excitement. Seraphina was known for her precision, but also for the fearlessness she had reclaimed. Naomi, now her personal executive assistant, leaned slightly toward her. The proposal for the London partnership is ready whenever you want to review it. Good, ma fata, Seraphina said. Schedule a meeting with their directors next week and arrange a call with our partners in Dubai. I want our expansion to be consistent across markets. Already noted, Naomi replied with a proud smile. As the meeting progressed, Seraphina felt something warm settle in her chest. This life fit her. She belonged in a room that demanded leadership, in a chair she had earned, not through inherited power, not through someone else's name, through her own. When the meeting ended and the executives filtered out, Daniel paused at the door. Excellent presentation, he said. You have a way of making people believe in the impossible. She smiled slightly. The impossible is just something people have not tried hard enough to build. Daniel inclined his head. If you ever need another strategist on the European side, I would be honored to help. I will keep that in mind, she replied. When the room was empty, Seraphina gathered her notes and walked toward the private rooftop terrace attached to her office. The evening air welcomed her, cool and fragrant, the sky painted with streaks of gold across the horizon. She stepped to the railing, looking down at the city alive with lights. For a moment she let the wind lift her hair, closing her eyes as she inhaled deeply. This, she thought, was what freedom felt like. Naomi's voice drifted from behind her. Ms. Vance, I have the update you asked for. Seraphina turned. What update? The one about Mr. Beaumont, Naomi said gently. You told me to pass along anything significant. Seraphina braced herself, though her heart no longer reacted the way it once had. What happened? He left the Beaumont firm, Naomi said. Apparently the board lost confidence in him. There were rumors about mismanaged deals, and there was also the scandal. People talk. His name was mentioned too often. Seraphina absorbed the information without flinching. And his mother? Mrs. Beaumont tried to reach you several times, Naomi said carefully. She left messages. I stored them for you, but I assumed you did not want to listen. You assumed correctly. Naomi hesitated. Do you want me to delete them? Yes, Seraphina said. Delete all of them. Naomi nodded and stepped back inside, closing the terrace door quietly. Alone again, Seraphina turned back to the cityscape. The distance between her present and her past felt long and clear now, like a bridge burned and rebuilt in a stronger shape. She thought of Lachlan, of the man he once was and the man he became. She felt no rage, no pleasure in his fall. What she felt was understanding. Weakness had cost him more than infidelity ever could. She thought of Eleanor, of her sharp comments and brittle pride, a woman who measured worth by bloodlines and appearances. Seraphina no longer felt the sting of those old judgments. They belonged to another version of herself, The version who waited for approval from people incapable of giving it. She rested her palms lightly on the railing. Her name, Vance, echoed softly in her mind. It felt like coming home. The terrace door opened again. Naomi peeked out. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to remind you that the investors' dinner begins in an hour. Seraphina nodded. Thank you. I will be down soon. As Naomi stepped away, Seraphina looked up at the sky one last time. The fading sun cast a soft glow on the buildings below. Her life was not perfect. It did not need to be. It was hers. She whispered, not to the past, but to the woman she had become. This is only the beginning. And for the first time in years, Seraphina Vance walked back inside with a heart unburdened, stepping into a future she had carved with her own hands. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. Tell me, what part of Seraphina's journey spoke to you the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections. Your support means everything. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to follow and join me for the next story. See you again soon.